Hello, live community. It's live at 5. Jackie Porter, the Financial Confidante. I don't know if you've ever heard this song, but happy summer solstice, everybody. I just think this is such a great way to start off the summer solstice. We just had June 21st, the longest day of the year. So I wanted you to hear that song because, as I said, that artist, by the way, was Naomi Nagani, and she's just an amazing, beautiful voice, as you can see, and she is actually a collaboration with a group called Coop. Don't know how many of you have ever heard the song Coop before, or the group's Coop. The song is Summer Sun, so you can imagine was the start of summer on June 21st. We're now June 22nd, so it seemed really fitting to celebrate the beginning of summer with such a beautiful, soulful, beautiful voice, ethereal voice, to kind of capture the excitement of the upcoming summer season. So if you're wondering what we're going to be talking about today, the hint is always in this song, so I hope you've been listening carefully. One of the reasons I picked this song by Coop and this song called Summer Sun is because I wanted to kind of get people thinking about their summer vacation plans, their summer. Listen, folks, it's been a tough 2.5 years, right? We haven't had things fully open for 2.5 years, and now we're finally seeing the economy reopen, and we're getting the opportunity to get out again and socialize with our loved ones and do all this awesome stuff. And so I really wanted people to start thinking about what's that going to mean to their overall finances, especially if they haven't thought about it. So our topic for today is how to control your summer spending. And that might not seem like it might seem, pretty low key and pretty, it shouldn't be a controversial topic. But the truth is, we are coming out of the pandemic. And one of the lessons we learned coming out of the pandemic was that having that emergency fund. So for those of you who might have had an emergency fund, maybe you were sleeping a little bit better at night. And I'd love to know in the chat, because this show is always to support, never to shame. So for those of you who had an emergency fund during the pandemic, I'd love for you to post in the chat. We'd love to know and support you. For those of you who might not have had an emergency fund and you felt a little bit of anxiety coming during the pandemic, worrying about your financial circumstances, this is a really crucial lesson. And so now that our finances are no longer really on lockdown, how are we going to make decisions, make intentional decisions that are going to benefit our future? This is really what I want to spend some time talking about. We have some real issues, live community, that we're facing as the economy reopens and, we are getting our finances out of lockdown, not least of which is dealing with the fact that interest rates are going up. We've had 3 increases to interest rates. This is the most we've seen since 2008. So we've had 3 increases in interest rates in less than 6 months. We're only in June now. So that's the first thing we're dealing with. That's the first headwind. And for those of you who are dealing with a mortgage renewal, I would love to know, how many of you have a mortgage renewal that's coming up where you'll have to renegotiate your interest rates? I'd love for you to post that in the chat, because that's a real concern. Now, you're going to be renewing your mortgage at a much higher rate than you might have planned. How is that going to take a bite out of that out of your finances and mean you'll have less money to work with? So that's challenge number 1 going into summer spending. And I'm not trying to, guys, listen, I'm with you. I have my own summer spending planned, but we'll tackle how to manage all of these things in a moment. But we need to talk about, I always want to bring real talk to the Financial Confidante show. I always wanted to, when we do live at 5 with the Financial Confidante, I'm going to always be real with you. So please keep my feet to the fire when it comes to stuff like that. So anyway, our second issue that we're going to be dealing with, that we are all dealing with right now, other than high interest rates, is really the high cost of inflation. I'm sure all of you are aware, since COVID has started, we've been facing higher and higher um, prices for gas. And that's really, really come up, especially in the last 6 months. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it always feels like really such a roller coaster when we go to the gas station. What are we going to pay? How much more of a dent is it going to make into our checkbooks and into our bank accounts? So gas is one. The second place that we're seeing prices rise is also the cost of groceries. Have you been to the grocery store recently? Not a cheap place to go either, right? A lot of us are also seeing the rise of costs of our groceries. I mean, I've been to the grocery store recently and had sticker shock when I only picked up 4 or 5 items and I felt like we were already at $100. So, these are real issues that we're dealing with, is, seeing the cost of gas and groceries go up quite a bit. And, these are all the things that, we're all dealing with. So I'd love it in the chat if, what have been the things that have surprised you in terms of what some of the costs that you're seeing increase. And, I'd love to also know how you're dealing with that. Are you cutting back? The thing that we're trying to really prevent, live community, is having you put these expenses on your credit card or a line of credit, and you go into that spin when it comes to spending. So now let's talk about how we're going to manage summer spending. How, we don't want to go into that summer spending spree. We want to manage summer spending and really just stay living within our means and continuing to build our financial fortress and fortune. So I'm going to share some tips with you today on how do we do that? How do we actually, really curb maybe our temptation after all this time to spend and just get out there and just go crazy, and excuse me, instead really stay on top of our summer spending. So I have a question before I start this. Question for you, live community. How many of you have a summer budget? How many of you have a budget or started a summer budget? Live community, again, real talk. If you don't have a budget, and if you don't want to think of it as a budget, think of it as your spending plan. So if you don't have a budget or spending plan, I really recommend now is the time to create one. Let's work on it. Let's put this on one of our goals. So it's really important, especially because if you haven't been keeping track of where your money is going and you don't really have a yearly spending plan, this is the time to start, because expenses over the last 2 years have been kind of wonky, right? Our budget has been in lockdown. We probably haven't spent very much on the fun category. We haven't been able to go out for lunch. Maybe we may not have been able to do dinners with friends. We may not have been able to, pursue all of our hobbies. So these are all things that might have been in lockdown. And so you might have lost track of, where you're spending. So this is a really good time to just kind of revisit things, look more closely at your spending. Maybe look at the last 3 months of your income and expenses to just see where your money has gone over the last 3 months. And just then create that, here's how much income came in over the last 3 months. Here's how much I've been spending. And then really think through if what you're spending, what you've been spending money on over the last 3 months, if that's what you really want your money to go to. So this is a good time to just do some thinking through, be intentional about your spending, and just think through, this is the time to determine, okay, here's where I want my summer budget to go. These are some categories I might want to spend money on. So typically people know what their fixed expenses are. They're pretty clear. Your, rent, mortgage payments, etc. Anything that's pretty much the same each month. It's the fun category that always kind of messes people up. So the more you can kind of think hard about where your money goes in the fun category, summer fun category, it's a good time to kind of sort of write all of those things down. Now, if you're creating a budget for the first time and you need help, just reach out to our team for resources. We'll help to get you started. I know Jody's on this call. She'll create a little message in the chat, and you can certainly reach out to us if you want more one-on-one help with creating that budget. But to just give you an idea of some of the places people spend money on, because I've been doing this for 25 years. So, here's some ideas of what some of your summer spending can look like. And by the way, if you have some summer plans, I'd love to hear what they are in the chat. So feel free to post in the chat. This is some of the things I plan to do this summer, because maybe you'll help people figure out as well. Oh, maybe I haven't thought about that, but I'll do it and not think, and then spend and not have a plan. So please feel free to put your summer spending in the chat, some places you plan to spend money on. I'm going to just list a few that I have here that might be helpful for those of you sort of building your summer expenses plan. So road trips, vacations, weekend getaways, events, hobbies that you might be starting up again. Maybe you're going to be doing some entertaining at home. So you need to budget for that extra food, right? It's not the same amount of money you're going to spend when it's just you versus when it's someone else that's going to get involved, right? So, babe, I'm just on the phone. Anyway, so as I said, if you're in that scenario where you're trying to figure out what you're going to spend, these are some categories. It also can include music, sports, and then any other items that might be specific to your summer plan. So like I said, guys, feel free to chime in if there are other categories I haven't thought of. Feel free to add, some of the plans that you have, and we'll post it in the chat to just kind of help support our community who might be just getting started on their budget. So I'm going to share some tips. So the first one is really create that summer spending plan, create that budget for the year, because this is a great time to just start thinking, okay, now that things are opening up, what might I spend on holidays? What might I spend on travel, not just for the summer, but for the year? Put everything down. Create an intentional spending plan. This is definitely the time to do it. And if you're worried about being able to stick to your budget, always start with tip number 2, which is pay yourself first. So if you think, geez, might be easier to just save first than worrying about my summer spending, another tip is pay yourself first. So maybe start with 10 or 20% of your income going to savings. Maybe building up that emergency fund if you haven't done it already. So make that an automatic monthly contribution. And then that way you can look at how you can, live on the difference, live within your means after that. So that's one of the things you can do, because you want to leave money for you, right? Why work so hard? Everybody else gets to benefit from the money later, except you. So definitely look at paying yourself first. The third thing I'm going to recommend is plan ahead. I find when things are left to the last minute, and so if you're not thinking about your summer spending and you just start spending, so when it's left to the last minute, what do? We tend to throw money at the problem. So one of the reasons I'm asking you, what are you going to spend money on this summer, is because now is the time to think about all those summer activities you want to do, places you want to go, items you may want to buy, maybe even things around the house to help out, just because you're having people over again. So just think about all of those things. And maybe even put it in a calendar so you have everything mapped out of what the things are that you're going to do this summer, and how much it's going to cost, so you can start, getting organized around all of that. For those of you who have children, same thing. There might be camps that you have to pay for. You have to factor all those costs in, because the summer comes and goes really, really quickly. So you'll want to, if you have children in particular and you've got activities you want to do with them, and there's camps and all of those things, create that activity calendar that maps out exactly what you're going to do over the summer. And, and then you can also map out how much it's going to cost as well. Now we're going to go on to the fourth tip. So after we look at, looking at what your summer plans are going to be, recognizing things are definitely going up, costs of things are going up, and looking at as well at, the fact that you're going to actually need to be intentional about saving. Now, the next thing we're going to recommend that you do is if you are somebody who isn't good at building a budget, maybe the other thing to do is consider other strategies that might help you save. So I don't know if you've ever heard of just living on cash. So um, there's two ways you can do this. When it comes to living on cash, you can sort of use jars. Sometimes people used to use jars in the old days, but maybe it's just taking out cash and each week out of your account that you're going to earmark for summer spending. And then that way, once that cash is finished, you can put it in an envelope or jars. Once that's done, then that's really it. You don't have any more money to spend. So if you're someone who's not really good with using a budget and spreadsheets and figuring it all out, it may be another option is to use kick it old school, we used to call it. Just use those simple methods, the envelope method. Use cash, either put it in a jar, put it in an envelope, itemize it for all of your summer fun activities. And when that money is done each month, each week, when you put it aside, then that's all you have to work with. And for some people, actually seeing the money go out of those envelopes or out of those jars can be useful because it gives them a cue that money is going away. And then they can actually have a visual of seeing their money go. So that might be helpful. Another resource might be budget apps. If you need actual budget apps, recommendations, again, reach out to our team. We can give you some ideas on different apps that you can check out. So just consider all of these different resources to help make sure you live within your means this summer. And then the other thing I'm going to mention to you is prioritize. So here's the thing. Now that you've mapped out the summer, broke down your activities, we just talked about the summer's going to go quickly. The reality is, maybe once you do this, you're going to go, oh, this is going to be a lot. Maybe I don't want to do all of this. Prioritize. What are the most important activities on this list that you'll want to do? Just prioritize. What if you don't get to do everything? What are the most important? Add a dollar amount to that, and then it'll help you to decide: do I need to do everything, or would these activities be the top? And you might want to do this activity with your children as well. So your children, I know they've been locked down, and you might have all these activities and plans that you want to do with them this summer. Ask them to prioritize. What are some of the top 3 activities they want to do this summer, top 3 things they want to do? And maybe that's what you focus on, because then that helps them to have that lesson to figure out what really matters to them. And then that gives you an opportunity to be a lot more realistic with your budget as well. So that's another thing, is really prioritize. What really matters? What's really, really important to you? And then finally, remember, when it comes to fun and the summer and really just making the most of the summer coming out of the lockdown, fun doesn't always have to cost money, right? What are some things you can do with your children that are free or near free? What are some things you can do with your friends that are free or near free? Maybe have a potluck rather than going out to an expensive dinner. So just, again, think about things you can do. Maybe you'll go for a walk with a friend, enjoy more time together, maybe book a pool day, doing stuff in the backyard, watching a summer movie. These are just a few I'm naming, but the list is truly endless. If you're looking for things to do with your kids this summer and you're looking for things that are cheap or free, we have a link to an article called 100 Fun Summer Activities for Kids that are fun, cheap, or free. And we're happy to share that with you because, again, remember, spending time with your loved ones is the greatest investment money cannot buy. So thank you so much for listening to our live this week. Stay tuned for future lives. We're going to share all of the information. If you didn't get a chance to listen to all of it today, we're going to share it on our live summary this Sunday. So stay tuned for that. And remember to follow us just to keep up with all the latest updates. So see you next week, live community. Have a great one. Take care now.